Not just because we got to spend time with him, but because he got to make decisions about his stuff and be able to handle it and to be able to show us his filing system and how things worked and where things needed to go, right? If Sam's stepmother was to pass away tomorrow, we'd have to burn the house down. Because there is no way that we would have the time, the money, or the energy to handle the volume of stuff that is in that space. There's just no way. It wouldn't be worth it. It wouldn't be worth it. When you think about your stuff, I know a lot of us get sentimental with some things because it's been passed down, right? And I'm at an age where things are starting to come. We got cannons from my father-in-law. That's a whole other seminar in and of itself, the feng shui of cannons. But when you get sentimental items, I need you to remember that just because you loved that person, Sam loved his father, there's no doubt about it. But just because you love that person doesn't mean that you have to love their stuff for the rest of your life, okay? Stuff is given to us because people want us to do well. They want us to be blessed and to enjoy it and to be happy and for it to make our lives better, right? That's why gifts are given. That's why things are passed down. Nobody meant to give you something that was going to be an anchor around your neck, that every single time you walked into the room you were like, this is horrifying. I can't believe I have this ugly lamp from Aunt Mary. And, Aunt Mary must not have liked me very much because it's a horrible lamp. Just because you love somebody does not mean that you're required to keep their stuff for the rest of your life. Are there any questions? Because I've covered kind of a lot of ground. Yes, go ahead.
What about for tax purposes? You're saying you keep records for up to 7 years.
7 years.
What do you do with,
I think that we make it much more complicated than it is. I've seen people who save every receipt, and they have never itemized anything in their entire life. If you're not going to itemize, you don't need receipts. Okay? You just take the standard deduction. That's the way that it is. Like I said, both my husband and I owned our own businesses. We've had, investments. We lost his father this year. This was our biggest tax year, really, paper-wise, to date. And our tax file is still this big. Well, you can keep 7 of those. That's not, and still not use a whole filing drawer. And so I think a lot of times we say, oh, it's the taxes, when it's way more papers than really what it's supposed to be. That's my problem with bins and boxes and things like that. A lot of times people say, I'm going to declutter, and so the first thing that they do is they go shopping. To buy things that will help them declutter, right? I have to tell you, if you go out and you buy a box for your files, you are going to fill that box, okay? If you say, I'm going to keep this box of books, you will fill that box to the limit. If you declutter first, and then you leave and go and buy something to fit that stuff, you will buy a much smaller item, 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10. Do not, you're on a buying moratorium. There is no buying of anything except pretty hangers if you want to, but that is it. Good question. Thank you. Yes?
What do you do when you said you can't really declutter other people's stuff? What about kids' stuff or husband's stuff?
Okay. Let's talk about children. Let's talk about children for a minute. I believe, as a parent, that I am responsible to teach my children how to become functioning, capable, independent adults. I believe that that is my job. I take that very seriously. My life quote, the best quote I have ever heard, ever, is our only job is to be an example of a life that is working. And I think that is true. I'm supposed to be an example of a life that is working to my husband, to my children, to my community, to my friends, because if I can be an example of a life that is working, I can help other people's lives work, and I can pretty much guarantee that we'll get to where we're supposed to be. That we will find our life's path and we'll do what we're supposed to do. And so I take my kids' stuff very, very seriously. I have boundaries with them. The first boundary around my kids is that there are no toys in the bedroom. None, zero, no TVs, no computers, no DS games, nothing. There are no games in the bedroom. Bedrooms are for sleep and sex and getting dressed. And my kids had better not be having sex. And so it's for sleeping and getting dressed. Anything that it does not serve that purpose does not need to be in their bedrooms. And so by creating that initial boundary, it really allows their stuff to be very, very visible in our world. I don't want somebody to walk into my house and say, oh, you don't have children. No, they better see stuff that shows that I have children. That is their home, and it is supposed to be their space as well. But because it's out and it's visible, it's much easier for me to deal with. It's much easier for me to say, oh, honey, you haven't played with that in 6 months. I think it's time that we pass that on to another child who's going to love it. And by starting it early, and by allowing your children to actually do the gifting, and to take it somewhere where somebody is so thrilled because they've never had that toy before, it will change your children's life. There's a great book out there called The Everyday Philanthropist. Fantastic book. And it talks about how children get turned on to the idea of giving. And it starts right here, Mom and Dad. The best book ever on kids and clutter is by Dr. Kim John, I think is his last name. It's called Simplicity Parenting. And it talks about how the chaos of stuff is infiltrating our kids' minds. If you have a kid who's really struggling with ADD, ADHD, really is having issues with overstimulation, you have a couple of jobs to do. You have got to yin down their bedroom. You got to calm it down. You take out all the bright, crazy colors, the stripes and the polka dots and the crazy things hanging on the wall, and Darth Vader laying over their bed and all those things. You get that out of the room, calm it down. Second thing, you do a major decluttering of your household. And you put things in their place, and you teach children that this is where things go, and stop that chaos from feeding the overstimulation, and then you institute dinner. And you have a family dinner every single night, and you will see a huge difference in the way that your kids behave, the way that they relate, and the way that they think about stuff. And all of a sudden, the stuff is just stuff. And that's really what it's supposed to be. We've changed it, and we've made it something big and something that we need to keep our hands on. It's just stuff. And so I'm pretty brutal. Up until they're about 10, I'm the final say. I am the final say until they're about 10. And then I start stepping back. Because by that point, I have shown them how good it feels to give and what it feels like to be cluttered and stuffed, and how awesome it is to go through that process and to allow them to make the decisions. And by that point, they're making the decisions on their own. We do a major decluttering before every Christmas, a major decluttering before every birthday. And because I say to them, all right, you've grown up a whole year, and these are the things that you want, to enter this next year of your life in. Okay, what are you ready to give up? What needs to go? And kids are eager. If you look at it instead of this fearful, scary thing of letting this stuff go, and it's just a natural process, anything that you need is going to come back to you. It always does. It always does. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Books.
Books. Oh, books. I'm going to tell you about books from a feng shui perspective, okay? From a feng shui perspective, books contain a tremendous amount of energy. Because they carry the amount of energy of the writer, they carry the energy of the message, they carry the energy that you had as you resonated with that book. And so they're very, very powerful. And so if all of a sudden you have 5, 10, 35, 3,500 books in your space, it can become very, very suffocating very fast. Do you know why this library, which has a great selection, if you check the collection for decluttering books, some of the ones are on the back, they are some of the best of the best. This library has a great collection. But do you know why this library doesn't feel stagnant or heavy or oppressive? because that collection is constantly in use. It's constantly